we need to protect our treaties, and we need to provide awareness to our children that our treaties, belong to the people, and they don't belong to anybody else. They belong to the people, and it belongs to those that are within that Treaty 4 area. And we need to really make Treaty 4 or all number treaties strong, so that the government, doesn't play games. They did it through a ceremony, and they did it through their own process. And when we speak about treaties, I know Chief Okonees, our chief, didn't sign the treaty till a year after. Treaty 4 was signed in 1874, I believe, and then Okonees signed in 1875. And one of the reasons for that is our understanding was that he was there, but he was a nomad. He was hunting, and he wasn't. But he realized that when they signed that treaty, they gave up lots in his mind. They gave up lots, and he didn't want that. He didn't want to give up his ability to travel, his ability to go here and hunt and whatever, and he didn't want to sign. But at the end, he had to sign because they starved him and his people out, and the bison, the buffalo, they were, it was the food was scarce, and so anyway, he ended up signing with probably regret. And it is, like Chief Okonees, his Indian name was Thunder That Strikes. And that to us is very significant because he was, he outsmarted, a lot of the soldiers, and, when they came through here, Okonees. And so I think the treaties are a sacred covenant, and we need to honor that and continue to teach our children how honorable those treaties are. And sometimes we forget, and we got to go back to the way our nations thought, whereas the colonialistic government, they try to reverse that on us, but we got to continue to hold on to the sacredness, and continue to rely on our ancestors, on what they thought when they were smoking that pipe.
When I came back, I was looking for a topic to do, and I wanted to do something connected to George Gordon. Yeah, and the more I got into that, the more I realized that there's still so many historical questions to be answered, even around the Treaty 4. Like, I was really intrigued by what I read about Treaty 4, even in Alexander Morris's book, in the transcripts. I really found it lacking in terms of what the First Nations had to say, and you can't. It's hard to get at what they were trying to say. So you really do need to piece it together with the oral history part, and see what you can figure out about what they really understood, what they believed was they were agreeing to, if they were agreeing, because what happened in 1875, well, I mean, less than half of the First Nations that eventually signed Treaty 4 signed in 1874, right? Less than half. There was only like 13, I think. And so another 15 or 16 signed on afterwards. And all of them were probably told, well, they agreed to it over here, so you may as well agree, you know. And I think that they were just kind of bulldozed into it in 1874. And Peter Sear from George Gordon First Nation says that they were still debating and discussing the terms when one person, he said, got up and said, for me, I don't know what he did some I kissed the Queen, he said. He for himself, he took the Queen's hand, the commissioner's hands and whatnot, and it was like everybody else didn't have a chance after that. It was, for all intents and purposes, a done deal after that. And so it sounds like the people did not consider that what happened in 1874 really concluded the treaty, and they never smoked the pipe, as you know. So in 1875, it's clearly written in Morris's book that the people expected to resume the negotiations. Instead, they were told, "Oh no, that was all done last year." So that to me is an interesting, development in terms of Treaty 4.
Our history is not being taught. We have Indian control of education. Our own treaty history should be taught in schools. People should know who are the original treaty signers, and also the lands and what they originally inhabited. And we should have a cultural center in each of our communities or close to us in the Treaty 4 area. We should actually have those kind of services available for our children to learn about who they are and their ancestors. Don't be afraid to be an Indian. Even though you think you're not connected, even though your parents may know nothing about it, don't be afraid to just go and find out. Try it. It's not gonna hurt them. If our ancestors were doing these things for hundreds of years, they survived. They'll survive too. So it's we've gone through cultural genocide, and we have, and not too many people can say that they've continued the same practices as their fathers. There's not very many families that can do that. Especially, I know from the north that can be an issue. They think that all First Nations people that really negative way of living, and it's unfortunate, but that's cultural genocide at its best. They've made people forget.
The art style that I created it's already about 24 years old now. And it's a very recognizable style. So I try to take that aspect of it and weave it into a pattern where just kids as young as grade 1 can understand it, So I try to be open and accessible that way, and I make it fun for them. And we do projects all the time, and I'm still doing them. And I've been doing that for 18 years. I've been doing those kinds of projects. So it's, but my approach to doing these projects with them is, how would you say it? You have to keep them engaged, right? Like, to be curious, but fun, so that when they do it, they're not turned off by it, right? Like, they're working on it, but they don't. It can't be work, right? It's got to be fun for them. So, so you engage them that way, and then their teachers, and I find this fascinating, but their teachers are non-First Nations people, right? And they teach the history of the treaties, and they do it as best as they can, right? like, if you asked me if non-First Nations people have a right to teach treaties, I would say yes, they do. It should be, all teachers should be obligated to teach that to the kids. It's important. It's history. So when they go and when the teachers teach it to their children, and when we're going to do the projects, they know information about it, which is a good first step. But using the art is another way to do it, so that it's not just words you're hearing, or it's not just words you're reading on a book, but now you're using the creative part of your mind to soak in deeper, I think. So yeah.
Anots kai kaki speaks great kaki view tawiane egi posimot. Nuani tane guanma, moingas ki tan ka peaks guan. Kaki ugawian hegini here witness to. Eguais kaki peupiki gua kaki ugawian. No tawia kaki utawian egi sepuetet. Egin tonoten get muek te uchayat upiki gua. Mistä hemstä kiitteekö pua Simon? Ego minä, eks naamakstik, kaks naamakeet tauiako pua Simona. Tanssike spiks koitsako vaassak. Moi kaatskaki van semana avaasiskai sigasot. Ei nii suun eks keita. Ei nii set mistä he avaaski koi kaks naamaa. Ego aina kaks naamaa avaasissak tautsiki koi semaaka muu saakenam. Kaski tauka pikskuetem staki teko mu posimun minu posimu kakio. Ai me egi pewanitaan mitä ten mana ega skitaan ka pikskuan. Magamana ena naskumakik nuaku magana ku kakaskitat ka posimutsik. Mami chikok mana. Mami chikok. Tanki no kakiu taujan kiaps ka peto ka pikskuit ka posimu. Teko mana puhun mitä teen stai on posimu no posimuak. Hai.
Singing and drumming, it uplifts my spirit. It helps me whenever I'm feeling down, and I feel like it's guiding me. The songs are guiding me to the right path in life instead of taking that dark path with drugs and alcohol. And that's what it really means to me. It uplifts my spirit. It makes me feel connected because there's all these drums around Treaty 4 territory that sing for the dancers. That's what we were always taught. Sing for the dancers because the dancers need a song to sing. In other ceremonies too, those songs are calling our ancestors from the heavens, from the happy place, from the happy hunting grounds, we say. And when we sing those ceremony songs or power songs, it calls them down here so they could dance with us and enjoy this way of life with us. Treaty 4, it means to me that we have treaties, and while in other parts of Saskatchewan and other parts in Canada, they have their own ways of life, and down here in Treaty 4 we have our own way of life, and everyone just follows that, and it makes everyone in Treaty 4 feel connected. My dream as a drummer is to try go everywhere, try learn this way of life, try learn what was taken away from my ancestors, try get back everything, my language, try learn new things about the drum, about dancing, about powwow, about these ceremonies, so I could bring back my knowledge to Canada or whoever needs this knowledge. And that's my main mission and dream. The change I want to see is not following that dark path, not following that dark path of drugs, alcohol, or the street life. What I want to change, I want to be a role model to all the young kids to take the right path, to drumming, dancing, and going to these ceremonies. Because most days, kids my age and who are Indigenous are mainly are falling into that drugs and alcohol life. And I want to be an inspiration to those little kids and bring them back into the culture life. Never been down that wrong path. Every time I feel like I'm in that wrong path, it comes to me in my dreams or in my mind. It comes to me right away. Go to a ceremony, go to a plow, go to a round dance. And then I go. That's where the elders in the lodge tell me, you're lucky you came here. You're going down that wrong path. And then that's how I know. That's why I keep connected to the drum, because it saves me here and here. Whoever wants to start singing, and I want them to realize that you don't need to be scared. All you need to do is just start. If you don't start now, yeah, it's going to take a long time.
I try to think positive about that part, about educating people, and me, this is Canadian history. This is not only Indian history. This is Canadian history. It belongs to Canadian archives for what happened in Canada. So that's how I see it, and so basically I'm only doing my part to educate the public when I'm coming in here, which is totally an open mind. Sure, I've had a hell of a rough time here. I got spanked I don't know how many times, and beaten up and whatnot. And so many times I got my hair cut right to the wood kind of thing, but the girls and the boys, the young boys and the girls, and of course I was one of them. And I don't know why they punish you for that, but they thought you were bad, so they did punish you. So what they did is that they waited for all the boys and the girls to come in here, and then you'd take your wet sheet and you'd bring it down and you'd come in here and you'd put the wet sheet on your head and you'd stand right here. The girls are standing right there and the boys are standing right here while these guys were having lunch. You're standing here with your wet sheet over your head, and that was your punishment basically for wetting your bed. And so I don't know how many times I did that, but I mean, there was others that laughed at you while they were here some other time, like standing in the same place, how traumatized people were, right? So you can't have guilt for that, like for now, you don't know why there was a guilt thing. You at the time they made you believe it was wrong, so it was like being brainwashed about something,
When it was almost completed, or to a point where we could say, this is really the foundation of this memorial, I felt good, but I also felt some sadness because it does bring back memories about my own experience as a residential school survivor and my family's experiences. And so it's kind of now I have mixed feelings. Certainly I'm pleased that we have a place now that will be here forever, where people can come and remember, people can come to pray if that's their inclination, or more importantly for people that have no attachment or experience to learn about residential schools.
Intent of the treaty was that we would have Indigenous people, ourselves as a regional people, and the newcomers, the settlers, live peaceably side by side. Was to be a relationship, right, of mutual respect and support. Our culture, our spirituality, our rights, to have land and to make a living. And the way I see it is that the government intentionally did not educate settlers to this. It was not in their interest. Their interest was, to establish settlement as quickly as possible. And they saw Indigenous people simply as being an obstacle.
When I read up again on the history of the Pasqua pictograph, it was given to a guy by the name of Barnaby, I believe it was, and he was supposed to take it to the Queen Victoria at the time, I believe, and it didn't make it there. It only made it as far as Winnipeg, I believe, right? And kind of got lost in what we kind of call it went underground. It was never knew of, right? It was never heard of till some family wanted to sell it, right? So it's, and I think the difficulty is we had to buy it back. it is ours. It is the Pasqua Nation. Why should we have to pay for it? That was my originally thought when I first heard of, the Pasqua pictograph. We had to buy it back, and that's to me seemed a little unfair, right? That we had to pay for what was originally ours to bring back to our nation, and so they had to do research. They had to do some fundraising, right, and whatnot, and so I think that was the challenging part, is raising the money to buy back what was originally ours, right? So
we see in today's time I'm just gonna drop the bomb. There are a lot of pretendians in Canada and within the not just Two Spirit, but that movement of Indigenous rights. There are a lot of pretendians, and I do see it specifically within the Two Spirit community as well, and and how I kind of curb that, and it's not just an answer to that, but it's again our way of life. Is when I introduce myself, when we say you're saying my relatives are from Carry the Kettle, and in doing so, it's not just about that translation of that's what I'm saying. It's acknowledging my bloodline. It's acknowledging my relatives of who I am today, and that perspective I have. That's so our language is it's much more what's the word I'm looking for? It's our language is much more advanced than English. In my opinion, it's much more advanced. There's more depth to it. It's hard to take our language and just translate it to English, because it's not going to mean the same thing. So when I speak and when I do the work that I do, I always acknowledge Chekakina. I always acknowledge Carry the Kettle. My late mother is Crystal Cynthia Soto. Her mother is Verna Ironstar. Her parents are Julia Ironstar and Douglas Owatch. And then my grandfather is the late Arnold Soto, and his parents are Alex Soto and Mabel Pretty Shield. So the Pretty Shield, Soto, Owatch, Ironstar, that's my lineage. Don't know my father, but I was raised in that Nakota line, and so for me, when I looking at my pride as a somebody who's from Carry the Kettle, as somebody who's Nakota, but also understanding that it's not just my treaty card that makes me Indigenous, but it's that bloodline, and it's also acknowledging that I am who I am today because of those lines from Carry the Kettle.
Yeah, exactly, right? Extremely proud, right? I think that's one of my advantages, right? Is that, the position that I'm in, and sitting on different boards, right? That I feel like I'm actually representing the voice for our people in pharmacy, for example, right? And I'm able to kind of, bring that voice to the board, right? For example, right? So our voices are heard, right? And so I'll use my current example on sitting on a board of pharmacy, right? It is a lot of educating that has to take place, right? We call it into, that they recognize, the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action, right? That they're, that they weren't aware of, right? So just little things, and educating them on the importance of it, right? And the importance of Indigenous culture, identity, right? So I think that's important, right? And it's important that I use my voice where I can, right? To kind of educate people.
My treaty and my inherent rights to this land. It's very, very disheartening and frustrating working with the province. I truly believe that they are the most anti-treaty province in Canada. They don't want to recognize it. They say they do. They'll go like this, but their actions are completely different. We've moved our issues up to the chiefs and the ministers, and it hasn't changed either. It has not made any difference. But we won't stop. We're going to continue. No matter what, we're going to keep on doing this. I truly believe that our nations are getting stronger and more organized. And the Anishinaabe nations are much more stronger than like 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Like we are standing there and we're like, no, we're going to continue and we're not going to give up fighting for our treaty and our inherent rights to this land, for hunting, fishing, trapping, gathering. We're not going to stop fighting for our medicine chest, for our education. And even when I say education, I don't mean like a colonial education. I truly believe that we need to also have our education in our nations about our cultures, our traditions, protocols, praying, traditional parenting, everything like that. It's so important. That's a truly holistic approach.
The symbolism behind the Treaty 4 flag, it represents when we do a healing prayer, we pray to the east, which is the thunderbird, the south the sun, the west the wind, the north the buffalo, and those are all represented in the flag. Yeah, that's how the promises are kept in Indigenous ways, through the symbols of animate things, as in, I guess, the rivers flowing, grass growing, the buffalo, the wind, and that's what that means.
You know, a lot of people think we got the handouts. No, no way. It works both ways. We didn't sell this land to the white people. The negotiations to share the land with us. A tip of a plow. You know, that was they agree on that. Then the federal government told the Indian people, according to this elder, I got lots of information, what were spoken about the treaty time. I'm gonna use a dip of a plow to share with this land with you. After a while, when I start dig underneath that, a dip of a plow, we'll negotiate again. That's what they say at that time. But that didn't take place. That never happened.
We're not getting free of those things. No way. The white people got more out of that deal. We just got a little bit, you know. That's what that's what I'm here for. To get the government to recognize, to honor the treaties. I think that's my job from Treaty 4. Also, we only lease the land, a dip of a plow. I'm going to mention this over and over and over because that's a very important part.
I want to see our Indigenous people push as hard as they've been pushing. Ever since I was young, I've never seen this many Indigenous performers. But I would love to have our communities invite more Indigenous people out. And it would show so much more support for Indigenous artists. You know, like where I live in the southeast part of Saskatchewan, like right on an hour from both borders, we don't have that, you know, and that's something I wish we did have. I wish that our communities can invite more. I understand that, you know, the travel, you know, like all our artists are from central and northern Saskatchewan, but at the same time, it's like, I know we have so many more artists in Treaty 4, and I really hope that they come forward more and, you know, bands invite these Indigenous artists because Indigenous musicians are killer. Like some of them are just like, wow, like what are you doing here? Like, you know, why? How come you're here? Like you should be playing with a huge band. You know, it's just I hope that's what the future brings for our Indigenous artists.
I am only sure of things that I've learned over the years. You know, like the depth of the plow, and that we were in Treaty 4 area. And of course, we should have had a lot of free things according to our treaties. However, over the years, some of those have been diminished or not followed or whatever, you know.
How me talk hippie? There Peter there when I train there with hippina. Hore wopi you trapi capi. When I went to Ota, Hecha Peter there ke Dako there wa badake there. Dako there wopi akan unkara pe unka. Tanya I chumshni. I trancha pe there. Tako de ju hapi nak ash kupšni. Hecha Peter de a ke ojanka pe tlatka. Ojanka pe hehan a ke tako I čumšni I čumpi u čimpi. Ja heče dva čim. How me take pe? Hello, my friends. Today what I was thinking was with now being 150 years of treaty living on a reserve on this country in Saskatchewan. I say it's been a long time that now that some of the young chiefs are looking into a lot of the treaties and that a lot of the stuff that were promises weren't carried out. And today I see these treaties should be reviewed with the government and they should be looked at, and what's not carried out, tell the government that this is what you didn't do for this long a time, and it's about time you got caught up and do it. That's what I think. So today if the chiefs all get united and together from Treaty 4 area, there's about 36 bands, all get together and look back and see what we didn't get. Not only the cows and plows, but there's a lot of other stuff that were promised and that's not given to us. The proper implements, that's under the cows and plows, I guess, but other things like on reserve, we should have better schools, maybe have our own high school, stuff like that. My auntie Jean Goodwill fought hard to have medical centers on reserve, and she got that back in maybe in the 70s. So today all that should be looked at, and we're still looked after by the provincial government, are still looking into these first aid stations, and they're giving us money, but it comes with all the rules and regulations. And if you want to go into self-government, I think that's going to be a big issue in the coming years, because long time ago way of self-government is not the same as today. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, my hope, like I say, land back. My hope is that these children have a strong base for treaty knowledge. I believe that what I've said here earlier is that if you carry this treaty story, if you carry this treaty knowledge, you'll have the tools that you will need in order to be at the table with the crown. And some things you should remember is that We never gave up our land. We didn't cede, we didn't release, we didn't surrender. It is still ours. And we only gave 6 inches of the soil so that they could start with an agricultural way of life. That's all. And all the other resources, the deer, the animals, the birds, the fish, they're still ours. You know, we didn't give it to Canada. We didn't give it to Manitoba. In fact, those are areas that still need a discussion. And that's why our children need to know that that's going to be their battle. Yeah. Same thing with all the resources that the potash in Saskatchewan. There's potash here in Manitoba as well. And as well as all the other minerals, the mining, you know, everything, forestry. It's so, you know, it is a rich country, a rich province, but we need to be able to move the resources back under our responsibility because we never gave them up. Yeah. Right now, basically, it's a theft. You know, they're stealing our resources.
A lot of elders are still waiting for Canada to come back and conclude and finish negotiations. So I don't want that to be forgotten as well. But I also want to keep these stories that I learned from these people that are deceased, keep them going on as well. And there are certain places and times they'll say, Gary, come and talk about this treaty. Come and talk about the treaty signing. You got 10 minutes. And now it's kind of, I just even passed that mark, even though they try to cut me off and give me signals. And so these stories need to be told in their entirety, not paraphrased. They need to be told in the way that they were told to me, and the way they're told from this person and that person all the way down the line. A lot of people I talked to said that none of these oral histories or stories were ever published or recorded before modern times. You can't find these written.
I think that hope is something that our people really need. I think that our people are becoming disillusioned with the way that our politics have been set up for us under the Indian Act and under, you know, Canada. I think our people really need hope. It's apparent at the community level with the amount of substance abuse and with our younger people not really taking up education the way they should be. I think there really is kind of this disillusionment with everything, including with us as leaders, that people want something different. And I think it's our responsibility it may not happen in my lifetime, but I hope that we have something different and not governance under the Indian Act, the loss of our knowledge about our kinship laws, the loss of knowledge about our relationship to creation. I see a lot of resurgence of our culture, like our ceremonial life, you know, the push by our Chianishnaabek to revive our, you know, our way of thinking and approaching how we live on the land and how we live with each other. I think that if we continue to be guided by their direction, I think we have a way forward.
I think we know when we came back from residential school and all that, we had to put all our culture, language aside to learn and get our education and learn the English language. And in the meantime, after we got our education, we came back home and we sat with the elders of our communities and still taught us ceremonies and a language which we have to get back into our way of living. We live in two worlds now, our culture, language, with the mainstream society in Canada. And we have to know how to fit into the two worlds. Yeah. We're managing pretty good. Our young people getting their education, becoming as to what they want to become, and to come back, help the community, or for them to work wherever they want in Canada. Yeah.
Well, kami kanagir, wikana nagatenda zine. Miwe gagi mini gorjenga. Knagego we gagi munyasa kagi mini gorjenga. Unwe kayas debi yat. Knagego te Chichuko and this is what I guess. Kavin, in my Gengi sting and dan Knagay ways, Kagi mini ocean. He could make woman. He could make woman up it. And he took Pia and Anna turned the mortgage chance snapping and Nanik. We got yes, baby yacht. Kong ye weekend the Zino, Munya sucking a Tutsi yacht. Onimagi won't Nistritan in the go. I need nigga in a second kingdom what can go. Chinese scenic. Munya Saki is big yacht, Kongin out. Kongin out to my Gigitoni eat them. He avat to seam. We know a Kanagego is Tutamwat. Oh, I said everything that they made in the treaties, they made those up, not us. We didn't understand anything. It's not us that signed those things. They made us sign them because they offered us. As an interpretation, I think they misinterpret a lot of things too when our forefathers signed those things, those treaties. They didn't understand. They were lied to in many ways. That's why they're able to break those things now, break those treaties with little effort.
I'd like to see reconciliation become a reality. I think right now we're at a point where the younger generations are ready to open up to it, and they're going to be the ones that really make it happen. I think that the ones my age and a little bit older are healing. And really this next little while is going to be about healing and straightening out our priorities and coming up with a plan moving forward. And we're really going to depend on the younger generations to take us forward and out of disjointed relationships. It's going to be the youth that are going to pull us together, and we have to allow them to lead us, because a lot of us are damaged because of the things that have happened to us and to our relatives, right? So we really have to focus on healing and looking after that, and then putting our confidence in the younger ones so that let them lead and we'll follow them. The first one that popped in my head was Wagutuin. So like relationships, and I guess that would be within your own family, within your own community, as well as outside of your own community, just all get people getting together and learning how to coexist and to thrive Because I think that's probably where we've missed. We've kind of learned how to exist and cooperate and get along together, but we haven't got to that point where we can thrive. And I think that's what's next.
Wichiso, help yourself. Pamiso, learn to look after yourself. Kai mischimo, don't go bragging on what you've got. Because it wasn't, your success wasn't just yours, it was somebody else helped you. Stay humble, you know. Continue to move forward. You know. Don't lose sight of the goals that you set for yourself. Don't be easily disappointed, deterred, you know. Keep in mind where you want to be, where you're going to, how you're going to get there, and what it's going to take to stay there.
Because some of the things that I heard from young people that have just been elected, they said, well, you know, treaties, what have they ever done for us? They haven't done a damn thing for us. Well, look at how we are. We're still poor. We have all this poverty on, like what Bill said. We have all that. What the hell is the treaties for? We should just renegotiate them. I sat him down, I said, look, the old men that fought for treaties, I said, would be turning over in their graves if they heard what you're saying. If you renegotiate the treaties, I said, you think you have nothing now, I said. You'll have nothing in the future. My father used to say, when you give everything, sell everything, you'll have no reserve boundaries. The municipality will come in and they'll govern you. You'll have no more chiefs or councillors. Everything will be taken from you. Then you're going to have to pay taxes. Is that what you want? I told him. No, he said. Well, that's what you're going to get if you renegotiate treaties. In this paper that I have, I told him, and you want to listen to this tape? My father said, we need to reaffirm treaties. We need to do that.